She was left alone on a date until a billionaire stranger said he'll regret losing you. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The clinking of silverware and low conversations drift across the dining room of Marlowe's, one of those upscale places where the plates look more like art than food. Warm amber lights glow against polished wine glasses, and the leather booths smell faintly of cedar and citrus polish. But in the middle of all that elegance, Claire Hart sits alone, her fingers tightening around the edge of her cloth napkin. She glances at the empty chair across from her again, pretending she isn't counting the minutes. 10, 15, 20. She forces herself to smile when the waiter comes by to refill her water, but humiliation burns at the back of her throat. Her cheap clutch purse sits stiffly on her lap, the one she bought 2 years ago for job interviews that never led anywhere. The blue dress she's wearing looks decent from afar, but she stitched the hem herself this morning, praying no one would notice the uneven thread. She checks her phone again, hoping for something: an apology, a delay, a sign he's on his way. Instead, a new message lights up the screen. Sorry, something came up. I can't make it tonight. That's it. No name, no explanation, just a digital shrug. Claire's stomach twists. She places the phone face down on the table, as if that could stop the sting. For a second, her vision blurs and she has to blink fast, refusing to let tears fall here. In a room full of confident people sipping vintage wine like loneliness is a foreign word. A couple at the next table glances her way. She pretends she doesn't notice. She pretends she doesn't care. But humiliation sits heavy and sharp in her chest. She reaches for the small paper napkin tucked under her glass, a flimsy lifeline, and presses it lightly against the corner of her eye. Don't cry, she begs herself silently. Not here. She straightens her shoulders, takes a breath, tries to act like a woman simply waiting, not abandoned. But then a shadow moves from a table a few feet away. A man looks up, pausing mid-sip. He watches her subtly at first, then with a quiet, intent concern. He's dressed in a charcoal coat and a crisp white shirt, not flashy but sharp, in a way that feels effortless. Dark hair, neatly styled, eyes steady and observant. He notices the tremor in her hand when she sets her water glass down. He notices the lone plate at her table, untouched. He notices the way she keeps checking her phone, even after the message clearly ended the night. Claire forces herself to stand, smoothing the skirt of her dress, ready to leave the restaurant before the embarrassment spreads any further. But as she takes a shaky step, her heel catches slightly on the edge of the rug, and that tiny stumble cracks whatever dignity she had left. She exhales sharply, gripping her purse as if she might disappear into it. The stranger watches her with a softness she doesn't see yet. Something in his expression shifts a flicker of recognition, not of her, but of a feeling he knows too well. Abandonment, hurt, being left behind in a place where everyone pretends to belong. He sets his glass down slowly, carefully, as if he's making a decision he can't take back. Because in this exact moment, long before she knows his name, long before she realizes who he really is, something about her, her quiet heartbreak, her stubborn attempt to hold herself together pulls him out of his chair. And with that, the night she thought would ruin her is about to change everything. Claire freezes for a moment, gripping her purse a little tighter as the stranger steps closer, but he keeps a respectful distance, his voice quiet enough that no one else can hear. You do not have to leave like someone who has been thrown away, he says gently. She forces a shaky smile and whispers, I am fine. It is a lie so thin that even she can hear it. She turns toward the exit, her heels clicking unevenly on the hardwood floor. The restaurant's warm lighting, once soothing, now feels like a spotlight exposing every insecure inch of her. She can feel curious glances brushing against her back, and the humiliation climbs higher up her chest. Outside, the evening air is cooler than she expected. A breeze sweeps through the narrow street, carrying the scent of roasted coffee from a nearby cafe and the distant rumble of traffic. Claire hugs her arms to herself and walks without a destination, just needing to get away from the glow of that restaurant and the memory of sitting alone at a table set for two. She makes it halfway down the block before she hears footsteps behind her, steady but not hurried. Excuse me, the stranger says. She stops because something in his tone is not intrusive, not pitying, but careful. She turns slightly, just enough to see him under the street lamp. He looks different out here, less polished and more human. "I did not mean to disturb you," he says. "I just wanted to make sure you got out of there all right." Claire swallows, embarrassed that someone witnessed her being stood up. "I am all right," she repeats, softer this time. He studies her for a beat, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "You do not have to pretend with me." His words land quietly but hit harder than she expects. She exhales long and slow, like she has been holding her breath since the message arrived at the table. "It was supposed to be my first date after a very long time," she admits. "I thought maybe things were finally turning around." Her voice cracks on the last word. The stranger nods, as if he understands more than she has said. "Sometimes people walk away because they cannot see what is right in front of them," he replies. "That does not make you any less worth staying for." Claire blinks at him, startled by the sincerity in his tone. "Why are you being so kind to me?" He looks away for a moment, as if remembering something distant and sharp. "Because I know what it feels like to wait for someone who never comes," he says. "To sit there pretending you are fine while you are falling apart on the inside." She is quiet, absorbing that. It is strange, standing under a street lamp with a stranger who speaks to her, as if her dignity is something fragile he wants to protect. Somewhere behind them, a bus hisses to a stop, letting passengers off. The glow of the marquee flickers across the pavement. Claire hugs herself tighter. "I do not even know your name," she says. He offers a small, almost hesitant smile. "Adrian." He does not add more. No last name, no title, no hint of the world he carries. Just Adrian. "Claire," she replies. They stand there for another quiet moment before he gestures down the street. "There is a cafe on the corner," he says. It is small, warm, and far away from curious eyes. "You do not have to talk if you do not want to. We can just sit so tonight feels a little less terrible." Claire hesitates. She owes him nothing. He owes her nothing. But the thought of sitting alone on her apartment floor, replaying tonight's humiliation, feels unbearable. She nods once. "Okay." Adrian's expression softens, like he had prepared himself for her to say no. He keeps a respectful pace beside her as they walk, careful not to crowd her, careful not to make assumptions. For the first time that night, Claire feels the weight in her chest ease just a little, not because her heartbreak vanished, but because for the first time since she sat at that table, she is no longer alone. And Adrian, with his quiet eyes and steady presence, walks with her like someone who understands exactly how it feels to be broken but still trying to stand. The cafe Adrian leads her to is small and quiet, tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore that has been closed for hours. Through the wide windows, Claire can see soft string lights hanging from the ceiling and a few people lingering over their late-night drinks. When they step inside, a wave of warm air washes over her, carrying the scent of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. It feels like a world removed from the restaurant where her evening collapsed. Adrian gestures toward a corner booth. "You can sit here. I will get us something warm," he says. Before she can protest, he adds, "Tea, coffee, or hot chocolate." Claire hesitates, unsure if she should let a stranger buy her anything, but the truth slips out quietly. "Hot chocolate," she says. He nods once with an understanding smile, as if he somehow expected her answer. Claire sinks into the booth, her fingers brushing the smooth edge of the wooden table. Her heart is still tender from the sting of being stood up, but the cafe is peaceful, and that alone makes her feel less exposed. She watches Adrian at the counter. He stands straight, shoulders squared, yet his movements are gentle, considerate. There is something steady about him, something calm that makes it hard to look away. When he returns, he sets a mug in front of her. The steam curls upward, scented with cocoa and a hint of vanilla. "Thank you," she murmurs. He simply nods. For a moment, they sit without speaking, the cafe's low music filling the quiet. Finally, Adrian says, "If you want to talk about what happened, you can. If not, that is fine too." Claire traces her fingertip along the rim of her mug. "I thought tonight would be different," she says softly. "I thought maybe I deserved a chance at something good for once." Adrian studies her face, not with pity but with a kind of respect that feels unusual. "You do deserve something good," he replies. "What someone else failed to see says nothing about your worth." Claire lets out a shaky breath. It feels strange, hearing such conviction from someone she has only known for an hour. But there is no judgment in his voice, only sincerity. She sips the hot chocolate, letting the warmth spread through her chest. "What about you?" she asks suddenly. "Earlier, you said you know how it feels to wait for someone who never comes." Adrian does not flinch, but something in his expression shifts, a subtle tightening around his eyes. "It was a long time ago," he says. "Someone I trusted, someone I thought would stay." "Did they leave?" she asks. "Yes," he answers quietly, without a word. "And I sat there pretending it did not hurt, even though it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me." Claire nods slowly. "Hurts in a way you do not expect it to," she whispers. "Yes," he agrees. "But it does not define who you get to be next." They fall into a gentle silence, the kind that feels less like absence and more like shared understanding. Outside, the city glows behind streaks of passing cars. But inside, the cafe feels like a small refuge carved out just for them. Claire looks down at the napkin she has been folding absent-mindedly. It is the second one tonight she has handled until it is crumpled. Adrian notices and smiles faintly. "You hold on to things when you are nervous," he observes. She blushes. "I guess I do." He leans back slightly, his voice calm and steady. "It means you are trying to keep yourself together. There is strength in that." Claire cannot remember the last time someone spoke to her like this, without pretense or agenda. She glances up and meets his eyes. "Why does it feel like you understand so much?" Adrian hesitates for just a moment, then says, "Because I have been exactly where you are, and I remember wishing someone had told me I was not as alone as I felt." The admission sinks into her like warmth. The weight in her chest softens, loosens. For the first time since she sat down at that restaurant table, she feels like she can breathe a little easier. She wraps her hands around the warm mug, letting the quiet companionship settle between them. The night that began with heartbreak is turning into something she never expected, a moment of connection with a stranger who sees her pain without taking advantage of it, and who treats her dignity like something worth guarding. And as the cafe's lights glow softly around them, Claire cannot help but wonder why a man like Adrian, gentle and composed, would care so much about a woman whose evening fell apart in front of him. Claire sits with her hands wrapped around the warm mug, letting the last of the melted chocolate linger on her tongue. The cafe is quieter now, the late-night crowd thinning until there are only a few tables left occupied. The barista wipes down counters with a tired rhythm, the hum of the espresso machine fading into the background. Adrian glances at Claire, and she notices for the first time that he looks almost relieved to see her calm down. It is subtle, a softness around his eyes, the faint unclenching of his jaw. "You look warmer," he says. Claire offers a small laugh. "Hot chocolate helps." The quiet between them stretches, comfortable but charged with something she cannot fully name. Adrian looks out the window as a taxi passes, its headlights sweeping across the pavement like a slow-moving spotlight. "Sometimes," he says softly, "a night that begins badly can still turn into something meaningful." Claire studies him. There is truth in his voice, but also a shadow of something deeper, something he is not saying. "Do you come here often?" she asks. "Only on nights when I need a little peace," he replies. Then he pauses, adding, "Tonight qualifies." She wonders what kind of day he had, what kind of life he lives that brings him to a quiet cafe instead of a bar or a crowded lounge. He seems like the type of man who carries responsibilities, the kind that weigh on a person's shoulders even when they try to look composed. She tries to imagine him in a different setting, but his simplicity tonight does not match any extravagant image she conjures. He feels grounded. Claire takes a breath, feeling braver now. "Thank you for sitting with me," she says. "You did not have to, but you did." Adrian shakes his head lightly. "No one deserves to feel invisible," he says. "Especially not you." Claire feels heat rise in her cheeks. She looks down, fidgeting with the sleeve of her dress. "You barely know me." "Sometimes you can recognize sincerity before you know the details," he replies. His voice is steady, almost protective. The sincerity disarms her. She has been treated like background noise for so long that being spoken to with quiet respect feels foreign, almost unreal. She swallows, steadying her voice. "Most people see someone alone in a restaurant and look away. You did not." Adrian tilts his head slightly. "I know how much courage it takes to show up for something you hope will change your life," he says. And I know how hard it hits when it falls apart in front of you. Claire nods, absorbing the weight of his words. You said earlier that someone left you once, she murmurs. Someone important. Adrian's breath shifts, and he looks away for a moment. Yes. Someone I trusted. They decided I was not worth staying for. The raw honesty of that confession makes the air feel different. He continues. I learned something that night. Pain feels less crushing when someone simply sits beside you, even if they cannot fix anything. Claire's chest tightens in recognition. You are doing that for me now, she says quietly. I am trying, he admits. She watches him for a moment, then something inside her softens. Would you mind telling me more about her? Adrian hesitates. It is not her story that matters, he replies slowly. It is how it changed me. I became more careful with who I let close, but also more aware when someone else is hurting. Claire lets that settle. She understands that kind of shift, when heartbreak shapes you into someone both stronger and a little more cautious. She takes another sip of her drink, the warmth grounding her. What about you? Adrian asks suddenly. Is tonight's date someone you cared about? Claire shakes her head. No, it was just someone I met online. Someone who seemed kind until he decided I was not interesting enough to show up for. Adrian's eyes soften with something close to frustration, as if offended on her behalf. Then he did not deserve the chance you gave him. Claire forces a small smile. Maybe not. The cafe lights dim slightly, signaling that closing time is nearing. Adrian notices and stands slowly. I can walk you home if you want. Or I can call a cab for you. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. Claire considers. She does not feel unsafe with him. In fact, she feels more steady than she expected. You can walk with me, she says. His posture relaxes, just a touch, like her trust means more to him than it should for two people who only met an hour ago. They step outside into the cool night air, and for the first time, Claire does not feel the hollow ache that had followed her since the restaurant. Adrian walks beside her, matching her pace, keeping a respectful distance yet offering the kind of quiet presence that steadies a person. She glances at him and wonders again who he really is beneath the calm exterior, and why a stranger would care so much about a woman whose night had fallen apart. She does not know yet that nothing about him is as simple as it seems, and the truth about who he really is will change everything about this night and everything she thinks she knows about kindness. The night air wraps around them as they walk, cool enough to make Claire pull her light jacket closer. The city has settled into its late-hour rhythm, quieter now, with only the occasional car passing and the soft echo of footsteps from someone blocks ahead. Adrian walks beside her, not too close, not too far, simply matching her pace as if he has done this 1,000 times with people he cares about. Claire glances at him once, then again, unable to stop herself from noticing how calm he seems, how steady his presence is. For the first time since her date abandoned her, she no longer feels like she is falling apart. This neighborhood is nicer than I expected, Adrian says lightly, looking around. Claire lets out a soft laugh. That is because we are still 2 streets away from where I actually live. Then, let me guess, he replies gently. You have chosen an apartment that is small, affordable, and just safe enough to get by. Claire blinks. How did you know? Because a lot of people do what they must, not what they want, Adrian says, especially when they are trying to rebuild. The word rebuild lands heavily. She does not tell him he is right, that the last 2 years of her life have been one long attempt to put herself back together after losing her job, losing her father, and losing the confidence she once had. She does not need to tell him any of that. Somehow, he sees it anyway. They turn a corner, and the streetlights illuminate a cracked sidewalk and a row of modest apartment buildings. Claire hesitates, her steps slowing. She suddenly feels self-conscious, imagining how her neighborhood must seem to someone like Adrian, who carries himself with the ease of a man who has never had to choose between groceries and rent. This is not exactly impressive, she murmurs. Adrian stops walking and turns to face her. Claire, dignity is not tied to where you live, he says, his tone firm but warm. Anyone can lose their footing. What matters is that you kept going. She swallows, surprised by how much she needed to hear that. They reach her building, a simple 3-story complex with paint peeling near the doorway and a single flickering light above the entrance. Claire looks down, embarrassed. "Thank you for walking with me," she says quietly. "And for everything tonight." "You do not owe me thanks," he replies. "I am just glad you are home safe." She nods and reaches for the railing of the steps, but something in her pauses. She turns back to him. He stands with his hands in his coat pockets, shoulders relaxed, eyes warm in a way that makes her chest tighten. "Adrian, will I see you again?" she asks before she can stop herself. His expression shifts, hope flickers there, quick and unmistakable. "If you want to," he says. Claire cannot help the small smile that rises. "I think I do." Adrian exhales softly, as if he has been holding that breath the entire walk. "Then I will make sure of it," he says. She does not understand the weight of his words yet, not the quiet determination beneath them, not the way he looks at her like she is someone he does not want to lose track of. Claire steps back toward the entrance. "Good night, Adrian." "Good night, Claire." She pushes open the door, the hinges creaking softly, and something in her hesitates again. She glances back one last time, and he is still there, waiting until she disappears safely into the hallway before he turns to leave. Claire climbs the stairs to her apartment, her heart still fluttering. She sets her keys on the counter and leans back against the door, letting the night replay in her mind. Then she pulls the crumpled napkin from her pocket, the one she squeezed in the cafe without realizing. She smooths it with her thumb and whispers to herself, "He will regret losing you." The words Adrian said earlier echo softly, settling into her chest like a quiet promise. What she does not know is that as Adrian walks away, he removes his phone from his pocket, glances at a missed call from a number labeled assistant, and ignores it. He slips the phone back into his coat with a sigh, because tonight, for the first time in a long time, he did not want to be the man everyone needs. He just wanted to be someone who helped a woman find her strength again, and he already knows deep down that this night is not the end of their story, but the beginning of a truth he has not yet revealed, one that will change everything. Claire wakes the next morning with sunlight pressing gently through her thin curtains, painting soft lines across the walls of her small apartment. For a moment, she lies still, letting the quiet settle around her. The memory of last night drifts back slowly, like the warmth of a fading dream. The restaurant, the rejection, and then Adrian, the stranger who seemed to understand her without prying, offering comfort in a way that felt both rare and grounding. She turns her head toward her phone on the nightstand. No new messages from the man who stood her up. She expected that. But a tiny part of her, one she barely wants to admit exists, wonders if Adrian might somehow appear there instead. She shakes the thought away and gets ready for work. The morning rush at the small office supply store where she works is its usual blur of impatient customers, squeaking carts, and the faint smell of printer ink. Claire keeps her head down, organizing shelves, scanning items, smiling when she can, but her mind drifts often. She finds herself replaying Adrian's voice, the way he said her name, the way he matched her steps on the walk home like he was protecting her without making it obvious. Around midday, as she is restocking pens, her coworker Mia nudges her. "You seem lighter today," Mia says. "Big secret?" Claire blushes. "Just a strange night, I guess." "Good strange or bad strange?" Mia presses. Claire hesitates. "Both. But it ended better than it started." Mia grins. "That means good strange." Before Claire can answer, the store door chimes. She glances up automatically, and her breath catches. Adrian is standing at the entrance. He looks different in the daytime light, more defined, more polished, but still carrying that quiet steadiness that had followed him all night. He spots her almost instantly, and a warm smile lifts the corner of his mouth. Mia whispers, "Oh, my goodness. If that is the guy, do not let him leave this store alive." Claire shoots her a warning look before stepping out from behind the display. "Adrian, what are you doing here?" He lifts a small paper bag. "I was in the area and thought you might not have had lunch yet." She stares at him, stunned. "You brought lunch? For me?" "For us," he says softly. "If you are free for a break." Her heart thumps harder than it should. Yes, I can take a break." They sit at one of the tiny staff tables near the back of the store. He hands her a warm sandwich wrapped neatly in parchment paper. It smells like roasted turkey and herbs. "How did you know this is my favorite?" she asks. "Lucky guess," he replies, though the hint of mischief in his eyes suggests otherwise. They eat quietly at first, but it is not an awkward silence. It is the same calm that seemed to follow them from the night before. "How are you feeling today?" he asks eventually. "Better," Claire says honestly. "Still a little embarrassed, but I feel okay." "You should," Adrian says. "You handled last night with more grace than most people would." She laughs softly. "I stumbled out of the restaurant and nearly tripped over the sidewalk." "Grace is not about perfection," he says. "It is about staying kind even when you are hurting." Claire feels her cheeks warm. She takes another bite of her sandwich to steady herself. "What about you?" she asks. "You disappeared last night pretty quickly." "I had an early meeting," Adrian replies, then adds, "but I did not want to leave without knowing you got home safe." She frowns slightly. "You stayed until I went inside." He nods once. "I did." Something tender curls inside her chest. "Why?" she asks quietly. His eyes meet hers, steady and sincere. "Because I wanted to, because it mattered." The words sink into her, slow and warm. Before she can respond, the store's ceiling speaker crackles to life, announcing a 5-minute warning for the end of her break. "I guess I need to get back," she whispers reluctantly. Adrian stands with her. "I will not keep you, but—" He hesitates, searching her face. "Would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow? Not as a rescue, not as a stranger helping someone out. Just dinner." Claire inhales sharply. Part of her wants to say yes immediately. Another part of her remembers last night's sting. "Are you sure?" she whispers. "I am absolutely sure," he says, not missing a beat. She studies him for a long moment. His eyes do not waver. His expression holds nothing but sincerity. And for the first time in a long time, she feels hope, not the fragile, trembling kind, but something steady, something real. "Yes," she finally says. "I would like that." Adrian's smile deepens, warm and quietly triumphant. "Then it is a date," he says. What neither of them knows yet is that this simple invitation will unravel the truth he has been holding back, the truth that will shake Claire's world when it finally comes to light. The next evening arrives faster than Claire expects, and she finds herself standing in front of her small bathroom mirror, smoothing the fabric of her dress for the 5th time. It is simple, a soft navy color that brings out her eyes, nothing extravagant. But it is the nicest thing she owns. She brushes a strand of hair behind her ear and exhales slowly, trying to steady her heartbeat. She reminds herself that this is just dinner, but even she does not believe that. Not after everything Adrian has done, not after the way he looked at her yesterday when he asked her out with such quiet certainty. A soft buzz from her phone pulls her from her thoughts. A message from Adrian reads, "I am outside whenever you are ready." Claire feels a flutter in her chest. She grabs her small purse, takes one last breath, and heads downstairs. When she steps out of her building, she stops abruptly. Adrian is leaning against a sleek black car parked at the curb, not flashy but undeniably expensive. He straightens when he sees her, and for a moment, he simply looks at her, his eyes softening in a way that makes her skin warm. "You look beautiful," he says. Claire blushes, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." He opens the passenger door for her, and she slips inside, noticing the faint scent of leather and cedar. As he drives, she glances at him, noticing tiny details she missed before. The watch on his wrist is elegant, understated but clearly valuable. His suit fits him perfectly, tailored in a way she has only seen on people who have money or influence. There is something about his calm confidence that feels familiar, yet she cannot place it. "I hope you are hungry," Adrian says, breaking the silence. "The place we are going is one of my favorites." Claire smiles nervously. "Anywhere is fine. I am just glad to be here." Adrian glances at her with a softness that makes her pulse skip. "So am I." The car eventually slows in front of a restaurant. Claire has only ever admired from a distance. It is the kind of place people post pictures of, with soft golden lighting, an intimate atmosphere, and a reputation for being expensive. Her stomach tightens. "Adrian," she whispers, "I do not think I can afford this." "You are not paying," he says gently. "Tonight is my treat." She hesitates, feeling the old insecurity return, the fear of being out of place. But Adrian places a reassuring hand near her back, guiding her inside without pressure. The hostess greets him instantly. "Good evening, Mr. Hale. Your table is ready." Claire freezes. Mr. Hale. The name echoes in her mind like a slow, spreading shock. She turns to look at him, but Adrian keeps his expression unreadable, as if hoping she did not catch it. But she did. Everyone in this city knows the name Hale. Hale Investments, Hale Enterprises, Hale Foundation. Adrian Hale, the billionaire who almost never appears in public interviews, the man whose face is rarely photographed, the private mogul who inherited and multiplied a fortune. She feels her breath stutter. She remembers the man from last night, the man who sat with her in a cafe, walked her home, brought her lunch. And now she sees the man who owns half the skyline of the city. Adrian, she whispers, her voice trembling. Why did the hostess call you Mr. Hale? Adrian turns to her slowly, pain flickering in his eyes. Claire, I was going to tell you tonight. She steps back without meaning to, her fingers trembling. Tell me what? That you are a billionaire? That you let me think you were just a stranger who happened to be kind? He takes a soft breath, his voice full of regret. I did not want my money to define how you saw me. I wanted you to get to know me, the real me. Claire shakes her head, her voice cracking. You let me pour my heart out to you. You let me talk about struggling to pay rent, struggling to rebuild, and you said nothing. Because I was trying to protect what we were building, he says desperately. I liked being just Adrian with you. She feels the world spinning, humiliation flooding her again, but this time sharper, deeper. You should have told me, she whispers. You should have trusted me enough to tell the truth. Adrian reaches for her hand, but she pulls it away. Claire, please. Her eyes burn, not from anger but from betrayal. I cannot do this, she whispers. I cannot be someone you hide the truth from. And before he can stop her, she turns, walking out of the glowing restaurant, out into the cool night air, her heart breaking in a way she did not expect, because this time she was not abandoned by a stranger. She was let down by someone she had started to trust. Claire steps out of the restaurant with her heart pounding, her breath unsteady as the cool night air hits her face. The city lights blur for a moment, not from the brightness but from the sting in her eyes. She wraps her arms around herself and starts walking, her steps quick and uneven, as if putting distance between her and Adrian might ease the ache he left behind. She feels foolish for letting herself believe he was just a man who cared, a stranger who happened to show up at the exact moment she needed kindness. Now she knows he was a billionaire who could slip through life with ease, someone who could walk into any restaurant and be recognized, someone who lived in a world far away from hers. She feels betrayed, not because he was wealthy, but because he hid it from her. She reaches her apartment building and climbs the stairs, each step heavier than the last. When she closes the door behind her, the silence hits her hard. Her stomach tightens. Adrian, she whispers, I do not think I can afford this. You are not paying, he says gently. Tonight is my treat. She hesitates, feeling the old insecurity return, the fear of being out of place. But Adrian places a reassuring hand near her back, guiding her inside without pressure. The hostess greets him instantly. Good evening, Mr. Hale. Your table is ready. Claire freezes. Mr. Hale. The name echoes in her mind like a slow, spreading shock. The city lights blur for a moment, not from the brightness but from the sting in her eyes. She wraps her arms around herself and starts walking, her steps quick and uneven, as if putting distance between her and Adrian might ease the ache he left behind. She feels foolish for letting herself believe he was just a man who cared, a stranger who happened to show up at the exact moment she needed kindness. She gets up, washes her face, and forces herself to go to work. Anything is better than thinking. At the store, Mia notices immediately. You look like you have lived 3 lifetimes since yesterday, Mia says, her voice worried. Claire forces a smile. Rough night. Mia softens. If you need to talk, I am here. Claire nods, grateful but not ready. She throws herself into work, stocking shelves, answering customers, anything to avoid replaying the moment she learned the truth. She presses her back against the wood and slides down until she is sitting on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest. Her phone vibrates. She looks at the screen. Adrian, please let me explain. Adrian, I never meant to hurt you. Adrian, you matter to me. Claire squeezes her eyes shut and sets the phone aside. She cannot read another message. Not yet. The night passes slowly, and sleep refuses to come. When dawn breaks, she feels drained but determined. She tries to push the feeling away, but the honesty in those words slips past her defenses. She looks deeper into the envelope and finds one more thing. A card with an address. A gallery she has never heard of. And one sentence. Please come tonight, if you still believe I owe you the truth. Claire closes her eyes. She does not want to care. She does not want to give him another chance to hurt her. But the ache in her chest is not anger anymore. It is longing, hope, fear, all tangled together. When her shift ends, she stands at the bus stop with the card in her hand, the address staring back at her like a question. She could go home, pretend nothing happened, pretend she does not care. Or she could go to the address and hear what he has to say. She thinks of Adrian's voice, soft and sincere at the cafe. She thinks of him waiting outside her apartment just to make sure she was safe. She thinks of how he always matched her step, never pushing, never forcing. She sighs. But the universe seems determined not to let her hide, because when she steps outside during her break, she finds something waiting for her. A small envelope taped to the staff door. Her name written in familiar handwriting. Her stomach twists. She looks around, scanning the street, but Adrian is nowhere in sight. With trembling hands, she opens the envelope. Inside is a single folded napkin, the same flimsy paper type she clung to the night she was stood up. What Claire does not know yet is that inside this gallery waits the truth, the apology, and the grand gesture Adrian has prepared, all built around a single belief he refuses to let go of. She is worth fighting for. The gallery is quiet when Claire steps inside, the air warm and softly lit by rows of hanging lights that cast a gentle glow across the polished floor. For a moment, she stands near the entrance, unsure if she has made a mistake coming here. Then she hears footsteps, slow and familiar, and Adrian appears from behind a partition, his expression a mixture of hope and fear. He stops a few feet away from her, as if afraid that moving closer might push her away again. "Thank you for coming," he says quietly. Claire's hands tighten around the strap of her purse. "I am not sure why I did," she admits. "Maybe I needed answers." "You deserve them," Adrian replies. He gestures toward the center of the room where a single display table sits beneath a spotlight. On top of it is a framed photograph. Claire steps closer, her breath catching when she sees what it is. It is the cafe from the night they met, empty except for 2 cups sitting across from each other. "Why is this here?" she whispers. "Because that night meant something to me, long before I knew how to explain it," Adrian says. "I wanted to show you, not tell you." She turns toward him, confused and overwhelmed. He continues, "I was at that cafe months ago, trying to clear my head after a long day. I was lost in my own thoughts when I noticed something. A woman was sitting alone outside, crying softly into a napkin. She looked so determined to keep herself together. She reminded me of strength I had forgotten existed." Claire feels her heart stutter. "That was me," she whispers. "Yes," Adrian says softly. "I remembered your face. I remembered how much I wanted to walk over and ask if you were all right, but you left before I could find the courage. So when I saw you again at the restaurant, standing alone, trying not to fall apart, I recognized you instantly." Claire presses a hand to her chest, struggling to breathe evenly. "Why did you not say anything?" "Because I was afraid," Adrian admits. "Afraid you would think I was following you. Afraid you would think my interest was too much, too soon. And then as we talked, I realized how much I wanted to know you without the shadow of my wealth hanging over us." He reaches into his coat and pulls out another small item. Claire's eyes widen when she sees it. The original napkin from the restaurant, the one she had crumpled in her hand when she realized she had been stood up. Except now it is pressed flat and placed in a simple glass frame. Next to it is a line written in delicate handwriting. "You deserve someone who showed up." Claire's throat tightens painfully. "Why would you do this?" "Because you deserve someone who saw your worth on your worst night," he says. "And because you were brave enough to open your heart even when it was hurting. I hid who I was because I did not want my world to drown out your voice. I wanted you to know Adrian the man, not Adrian the billionaire." She looks at him, tears gathering in her eyes. "You hurt me when you hid the truth." "I know," he says, his voice cracking, "and I will spend as long as it takes to rebuild the trust I broke. But I want you to know one thing with absolute certainty. I never lied about how I felt, not once." Claire steps closer, her breath trembling. "Then why am I here, Adrian? Why did I come?" He meets her gaze, his eyes soft but unflinching. "Because you feel something too. Because every moment we shared was real." She closes her eyes for a moment, letting the truth settle. The sincerity in his voice, the quiet vulnerability in his eyes, the gentle way he has always walked beside her instead of ahead of her. When she opens them again, she whispers, "I want honesty, No more secrets. Adrian nods firmly. You have my honesty. All of it. Claire exhales, the weight in her chest finally lifting. She steps into his arms, letting him hold her with the tenderness she has been craving for so long. Then show me, she murmurs. Show me that this was not just a moment. Show me that it can be something real. He holds her tighter, his voice warm against her ear. I will, for as long as you will let me. And in the quiet glow of the gallery, surrounded by memories of the night that brought them together, Claire finally lets herself believe it. Not in his wealth, not in his title, but in the man who showed up when it mattered, the man who saw her when she felt invisible, and who fought to prove that she was worth staying for.